Chapter 247. Soon, the elimination of the group began. In Group 3, the first two contestants on the stage were early clasping Yuan realm. One of them was using a blade art while the other one was using a fist art. Both their blade art and fist art were at high levels. The aftershocks of their attacks landed on the fist-thick, dark blue light wall, making a loud booming sound and sending sparks everywhere. After over 100 rounds of attacks, the contestant who used the fist art was slightly more powerful. He avoided the blade light and shattered his opponent's Zhen Qi layer with one punch, winning the battle. The second battle, Yuan Hengying against Huang Lang. In the first row of the audience seating, the judge of Group 3 yelled. Hearing him, Yuan Hengying sneered and flew towards the battling platform. That powerful dark blue light wall was like a water curtain. Waves spread out, but it did not stop him. Please. Huang Lang looked ordinary. He cupped his hands and said politely. Yuan Hengying said impatiently, cut the crap, eat my claw first. As he spoke, Yuan Hengying quickly activated his Zhen Qi and made a grabbing gesture in the air with his right hand. Dark cyan Zhen Qi shot up into the sky and transformed into a huge eagle claw. Once this Zhen Qi eagle claw appeared, it gave people a sense of ancient evil, as if it was a demon's claw. His ace attack has turned into a normal attack. It seems that Yuan Hengying has improved a lot. Yi Chen raised his eyebrows. Back in the Heaven Dream Battle Palace, Yuan Hengying and Zhuang Fei had attacked Yi Chen together and used this attack. However, that was his most powerful attack. Right now, he had used it right on the stage. Obviously, it was not because he was serious about his opponent, but because he had an even more powerful attack. Huang Lang was a contestant who had passed the 3 challenges of the Dragon Gate. Facing this attack from Yuan Hengying, although he looked serious, he still tried his best to block it. However, Yuan Hengying did not want to give him a chance to rest. He kept attacking with his claws, aiming at the weak point of his Zhen Qi layer. Boom! Under Yuan Hengying's powerful attack, Huang Lang's Zhen Qi layer only lasted for a short while before it was broken. The Group 3 judge nodded silently. Yuan Hengying was indeed one of the top young warriors in the last Hidden Dragon rank. He had a great chance to make it into the rank again. Clearing his throat, he announced his opponent for the third battle. Yi Chen's number was towards the back, and the first round of the competition was arranged according to the order of the number, so it would take some time before it was his turn. Taking advantage of the fact that there were no intense matches in Group 3, he raised his head and looked towards the other dueling platforms. It's Lynch. On the Group 7 battling platform, Lynch was facing a mid-clasping Yuan realm contestant. In terms of cultivation, Lynch was only at the peak level early clasping Yuan realm, which meant that he was not as powerful as his opponent. However, in terms of fighting power, that contestant was no match for Lynch. First, his weapon was knocked away by a single blade attack, and then his protective Zhen Qi layer was cut open. Amazing. He is currently the first contestant to defeat an opponent who is a level higher than him. The Group 7 judge had a look of admiration on his face. After sizing up Lynch, Yi Chen shifted his gaze. Coincidentally, he saw another familiar person. It was the second disciple of the alchemist martial school, Tian Hao. However, he was unlucky, as he had encountered a rather powerful opponent. He had been completely defeated after 30 attacks. After that, Yi Chen watched a few more battles. Most of the contestants were at the early or mid-clasping Yuan realm. There were only 30 or 40 people who had reached the late-clasping Yuan realm, and as for peak-level late-clasping Yuan realm, there were less than 10 of them. The head disciple of the Ice Extreme Martial School, Bing Ling, is on the stage. In the last Hidden Dragon rank, she was ranked 7th. Her opponent is not weak either. He was ranked 23rd in the last Hidden Dragon rank. No way. He was defeated with only one punch. Around the Group 4 battling platform, all of the young warriors were shocked. The warrior who was ranked 23rd in the last hidden dragon rank could not even take one punch from Bing Ling. It seemed like Bing Ling had not used all of her power at all. As for how much power she had used, only she herself would know. The hot candidates for the top 5 are indeed not something we can predict. The top 10 and below are not even worth mentioning. In the end, everyone came to a conclusion. The contestants who had the power to compete for the top 5 were already way beyond the others. They were not even on the same level. If they ran into them, they would probably be killed within seconds. Yi Chen had also noticed this. Although his opponent was very powerful, he was still not able to compete with him. He only had one opponent, which was Sikong Sheng. His powerful soul power allowed him to sense the opponent's power with amazing accuracy. The 10th battle, Yi Chen against Xiao Heng. Finally, it was Yi Chen's turn to compete on the stage. Unfortunately, his opponent was also a late clasping Yuan realm contestant, who was ranked 35 in the last hidden dragon rank. His weapon was a long silver spear, the tip of the spear shining with a cold light. I got the first point. Obviously, his opponent did not take Yi Chen seriously at all. He tapped his feet on the ground and his body flashed, floating in the air. The long spear in his hand was like a poisonous snake coming out of its cave. The spear shone with a bright light, looking extremely cold. Yi Chen stood where he was without moving. He released the poetic perspective of his lone peak kill, covering his opponent's mind. What? This is an illusion. There would not be 1,000 mountains and rivers appearing on the battling platform. His opponent's mind had been disturbed, and his spear art had lost its accuracy and power. Casually walking, Yi Chen appeared in front of his opponent at a normal speed and broke his Jin Qi layer with one punch. His back bumped into the dark blue light wall. His opponent looked at Yi Chen with a slight fear in his eyes. If he could, he did not want to face Yi Chen ever again. That feeling of being unable to use his power, and having his sense of space messed up, was driving him crazy. He believed that if he fought with Yi Chen for a few more battles, his condition would drop to an unprecedented level. Thank you. Not daring to look at Yi Chen, his opponent hurried to run out of the exit. He was afraid that Yi Chen would perform that horrifying poetic perspective on him again. Yi Chen touched his chin, thinking that he might have gone too far. Although the poetic perspective of the lone peak kill was useful, it would make his opponent's condition drop. If he ran into someone with a bad mentality, it might even affect his battling condition completely, and he would only be able to perform 80 to 90% of his power. Never mind, I will not use the poetic perspective of the lone peak kill unless it is absolutely necessary. I will use the sky-shattering clouds poetic perspective for now. In the previous battles, Yi Chen did not plan to use his sword intent. Therefore, he could only choose between the two poetic perspectives of the lone peak kill and the sky-shattering clouds. What is going on? Is he going easy on me? The poetic perspective of the lone peak kill only had a range of 10 meters. A lot of people had no idea what was going on, including Yuan Hengying, who had a very bad look on his face. Only the Group 3 judge looked shocked. His mental power was extremely powerful, and he could sense all the tiny changes on the stage. Yi Chen's lone peak kill poetic perspective did not hide from him. To be honest, among the clasping Yuan realm warriors, he had rarely seen anyone who could push their martial poetic perspective to this level. It could even affect the senses of the warriors. No wonder that contestant was so scared towards the end. Chapter 248. Interesting. The judge of the third group smiled. It had only been 10 battles, and there had already been an outstanding warrior. After a few more rounds, it should be easy to tell who would be powerful enough to make it to the next round. The 11th battle, Teng Imo against Gao Feng. Just as the judge's voice landed, the third group had been quiet for a while. Then, the discussion started like a tide, never stopping. In the last hidden dragon rank, Teng Imo was ranked 19. I did not expect him to get on the stage so soon. There are no powerful warriors in the third group. Without any surprises, he would definitely be in the top 2. I wonder if this contestant named Gao Feng could last a little bit longer and force out part of Ting Mo's power. Difficult. It would be impressive if he could last 3 attacks. Ting Mo is not a normal young warrior. As the crowd continued to discuss, Ting Mo and Gao Feng walked onto the stage. Ting Mo was wearing a black outfit with a gold crown on his head. His eyebrows were like sharp swords, extremely sharp. Normally, a teenager with eyebrows like this should be very handsome, or at least very handsome. Unfortunately, Ting Mo's appearance had broken this rule. His face was long and narrow, and his eyes were long and narrow. His nose was pointy, and his lips were extremely thin. He did not give people a good first impression, like a combination of a snake and a fox. The young man standing in front of Ting Mo was about 19 to 20 years old. He was tall and skinny, wearing a light gray long robe. His long hair was casually tied behind his head with a string, which made him look fresh and elegant. Facing a powerful opponent like Ting Mo, he did not have any expression on his face. He had been very calm, so calm that it was creepy. This Gao Feng is not simple. Yi Chen's opinion was different from everyone else's. In his eyes, Gao Feng, who looked calm and collected, was very powerful, almost as powerful as Ting Mo. Besides that, Yi Chen sensed a similar mentality from Gao Feng. It was the mentality of not being bound by the rules, and walking on his own path. If it was not hard to guess, his martial arts should be just like his mentality as well. On the battling platform, the two stood 50 meters away from each other. What? You don't want to give up? Ting Mo squinted his eyes. Gao Feng shook his head. I'm thinking, how many moves do I need to defeat you? Once he said that, not only did Ting Mo's expression change, even the people who were watching the battle could not help but roll their eyes. They felt that Ting Mo was just too arrogant. Who was Ting Mo? He was ranked 19 in the last Hidden Dragon rank, and had already reached the late clasping Yuan realm. His martial arts and martial skills were among the top of the young generation. He was only slightly weaker than Xikong Sheng and the others. If it were not for the fact that there were so many martial geniuses in this year's Hidden Dragon rank, he would definitely be one of the hot candidates for the top 10. Even so, no one could guarantee that he did not have the power to fight for the top 10. Ha! As if he'd heard the funniest joke, Ting Mo roared with laughter, and then his expression turned ghastly. Very good, I want to see how many moves it will take for you to defeat me. But before that, I plan to defeat you in 10 moves. I don't know if you're mentally prepared. Our chances of winning have increased a little. Gao Feng did not answer the question. Arrogant. Ting Mo was enraged. A dim light flashed on his storage ring, and a thin sword appeared in his hand. He shook his wrist, and hundreds of thousands of sword lights shot out of the thin sword. Each of them was mixed with a fiery red intent, sealing the space where Gao Feng was, trying to defeat him with one sword attack. It has appeared. It is Ting Mo's signature sword art, the Starfire Burning Sword. The Starfire Burning Sword is a high-rank Earth Realm sword art. With one sword attack, the sword light will be like a prairie fire, covering a huge area. It is almost impossible to dodge. And once you can't dodge it, you will have to face wave after wave of powerful attacks. Hearing the discussions of the contestants around him, Yi Chen touched his chin. Disciples from big martial institutions were indeed powerful. All of their sword arts were high-rank Earth Realm, which gave them a natural advantage. If he had guessed it right, this Starfire Burning Sword was not only powerful, but also the follow-up attacks. That kind of prairie fire poetic perspective was quite horrifying. Of course, the premise was that Ting Mo had learned the poetic perspective of the Starfire Burning Sword. Otherwise, no matter how powerful it was, it would only be powerful. Let's see how you are going to dodge it. Teng Yimo was extremely confident about the star fire burning sword. He believed that Gao Feng would not be able to dodge this attack. And once he failed to dodge, it would just be the beginning of his nightmare. Gao Feng indeed would not be able to dodge this sword attack. Therefore, he did not choose to dodge. Instead, he rushed towards the countless sword lights. A sword appeared in his hand as well. It was a shiny silver sword. The sword was 4 feet and 1 inch long, and 3 fingers wide. As he waved his arm, balls of silver white sword light started to move around in the air. Along with the puffing sound, that burning sword light was shattered halfway, turning into thousands of sparks, looking extremely beautiful. What? It was broken. Teng Yimo could not believe his own eyes. Although this sword attack was the starting movement of the star fire burning sword, among the warriors at the same level as him, no one had ever broken this attack with skills. When Gao Feng rushed towards him, he was actually very happy, because those sword lights were not normal sword lights. They were sword lights that could explode, just like a fire explosion. When hundreds of sword lights exploded one after another, no matter how powerful the Zhen Qi layer was, it would not be able to block it out. Among all the contestants off the stage, only Yi Chen could see through it with just one glance. Completely seeing through the tracks and weaknesses of the sword light, using the vibrating power to break the exploding power of the sword light from the inside. This is not something that normal people could do. What had just happened was as fast as lightning, and there were countless sword lights blocking it. However, Yi Chen's eyesight was extremely good. He only needed to see how Gao Feng had broken the sword light just by looking at the scene of the sword light shattering. Impressive. Teng Mo's first attack has been broken. What a surprise. How come this year's Hidden Dragon rank competitions are all so crazy? I have never seen this Gao Feng before. Most of the people could not see through it, but it did not stop them from knowing how powerful Gao Feng was. The battle that they thought was going to be one-sided had now turned into an even match, and the tables had even been turned. All of a sudden, everyone became interested and stared at the stage without blinking. Star Fire Ring. Teng Yimo was, after all, one of the top young warriors, so he quickly adjusted his mentality. He tapped the ground with the tip of his foot, and his body jumped high into the air. He swung his sword downwards, and the flame-like sword light, under the effect of inertia and rotational force, turned into a blazing ring of fire, and shot toward Teng Yimo. I have underestimated him. Gao Feng's pupils shrank. He could naturally see the power of the fire ring. It was different from the simple sword light, and this fire ring was made of sword light. It would be very hard to break it with one sword attack. If he was not careful, he would be wounded by the exploding power of the fire ring. Since this is the case, then let's fight it head-on. The silver long sword was pointed at the ground. Streams of gray smoke appeared out of nowhere on Gao Feng's right arm. The smoke slowly rose up like a fire without any temperature. Sword explosion. Taking a step forward with his right foot, Gao Feng threw out a sword attack towards the sky. Woo! Woo! A horrible crying sound was heard. As Gao Feng threw out his sword attack, the burning fire ring was blown out. The gray sword wind blew right towards Teng Yimo, seeming unstoppable. Gao Feng has won. Seeing this, Yi Chen shook his head. Teng Yimo was indeed very powerful, but unfortunately, he had not mastered all of the essence of the star fire burning sword art. He had not learned the mentality of the sword art either. Otherwise, Teng Yimo would not be able to break through his sword movement so easily. If it were him performing the star fire burning sword art, even normal astral reaching realm warriors would not be able to break through it with skills. Chapter 249. Just like Yi Chen had expected, Teng Yimo had lost. Instead of saying that he lost to Gao Feng, it would be more accurate to say that he lost to himself. From the very beginning, he had underestimated Gao Feng. He did not bring out all of his power and his peak condition for the competition. By the time he realized what had happened, the situation had already gone out of his control. After beating Teng Imo, Gao Feng's popularity had skyrocketed. No one could compete with him in Group 3. Contestants from other groups could not help but pay attention to Gao Feng as well. It was not that they did not have powerful young warriors in their groups, it was actually the exact opposite. It was because the powerful warriors in their groups were too powerful that the competition had no suspense at all. One could even guess the result with one's butt. Battles like this between Teng Imo and Gao Feng, where both of them were equally powerful, had rarely happened before. That Gao Feng is pretty powerful, and he is quite lucky as well. He is in Group 3, which does not have any powerful warriors. Yeah. Out of the 12 groups, 5 of them are known as the death groups. There are a lot of powerful warriors, and Group 3 is the safest group. The contestants in that group also have the highest chance of making it to the next round. No matter what, one's own power is the most important thing. In the first stage of the elimination competition, 12 people from each group will make it to the next round. Then, any 2 groups will be combined into one group, and the second stage of the elimination competition will begin. By then, out of the 24 people, 12 people will be eliminated. Being able to stand out from the group competition, who doesn't have a few ace attacks? I can already imagine how cruel the second stage of the elimination competition will be. None of the battles will be easy. The battles started one after another, and ended one after another. The speed was surprisingly fast. Many of the battles were finished within 10 attacks, and some people even gave up right away. Of course, it was a very rare situation after all. Most of the battles would take around 100 attacks to decide the winner. During the battles, Yi Chen would occasionally pay attention to some familiar people, such as Su Jing, Zhu Mei, and Lynch. Su Jing indeed did not need anyone to worry about her. Up until now, no one had been able to last more than 10 attacks from her. She was just like a female warrior from the ancient times. Her movements were fast, and her power was fast. Every movement she made contained the power of a thunderbolt, which made people scared. This situation lasted for about 3 or 4 rounds, and finally, someone chose to admit defeat, and it was a young master who was neither too old nor too young. Regarding this, the others did not show a look of disdain. Su Jing's strength was obvious to all, and there was not the slightest bit of falsehood. Moreover, what gave them a headache was that Su Jing's moves were big and wide, and she liked to force her opponents to fight her head-on. As a result, under repeated head-on clashes, no matter how strong one's body was, they would not be able to bear it. Their bones and muscles would be sore, and it would inevitably affect the later rounds. What surprised them was that Su Jing, who had a graceful figure and slender arms, did not even blush, nor was she out of breath, as if the previous battle was just a drizzle. Compared to Su Jing, Zhu Mei was having a much harder time. After 4 rounds of battles, she had lost 2 and won 2, which was considered average. She could not blame herself for losing the 2 battles. Her opponents were way more powerful than her. Even if she had tried her best, she would not have been able to win. As for the 2 battles that she had won, it was not easy at all. The first battle was over 200 rounds, and the second battle was even. No, Zhu Mei was slightly weaker than her opponent. Since the beginning of the battle, she had been at a disadvantage. After 400 rounds, Zhu Mei had caught onto her opponent's flaws and launched a thunderous counterattack. She had completely turned the situation around and won the battle. Needless to say, in terms of disciples, the North Snow Martial Academy had already completely surpassed the Emerald Martial Palace. Judging on the number of disciples, only the Emerald Child from the Emerald Martial Palace had the right to participate in the knockout competitions. Ji Xuan and Lu Wuxiang had both been knocked out in the 3 challenges of the Dragon Gate. Meanwhile, there were 2 disciples from the North Snow Martial Academy who had the right to participate in the knockout competitions, namely the North Snow Child Su Wen and the North Snow Fast Blade Lynch. Judging on the quality, Su Wen might be a bit weaker than Zhuang Fei, but Lynch was definitely better than Zhuang Fei in every aspect. In the 4 rounds of battles, Su Wen was the same as Zhuang Fei, he had lost 1 and won 3. There were 1 or 2 that he barely managed to win, and he had almost lost. As for Lynch, who had mastered the blade intent, he seemed to be much more relaxed. Without using all of his power, he had already won 4 battles in a row. Without any surprises, he should be able to smoothly advance to the next stage of the knockout competitions. The last one was the head disciple of the South Rudra Martial School, Qin Yulian. Her power was not to be underestimated, and she had trained the Sky First Holy Water spell, which was quite a high rank. She had lost 1 and won 3 out of the 4 rounds, so there was still hope for her to advance to the next stage. This year is not only the peak of the Hidden Dragon rank competitions, it is also the peak of our Windy Nation's young generation. Sitting in the first row of the audience, Luo Xinglie said emotionally. The headmaster nodded, not to mention Zhuang Fei and Su Wen, the 2 famous young warriors, Su Jing, Zhu Mei, Qin Yulian, and Lynch have all grown up. Plus, Yi Chen, this rare martial genius, it is indeed the peak of the Windy Nation. Among the 7 of them, if Yi Chen is not the second one, then out of the other 6, who do you think has a higher chance of making it to the next stage? The headmaster thought for a while, first would be Su Jing, then Lynch. The rest of them are almost at the same power level, so it is hard to say. About the same as I thought. Let's wait and see. Yi Chen's battle has started. The 2 stopped talking and looked towards the Group 3 battling platform. On the battling platform, Yi Chen was standing 50 meters away from his opponent, and his opponent was indeed the head disciple of the Sky Eagle Castle, Yuan Hengying. Yi Chen, don't think that you can beat me easily just because you are 1 rank higher than me. For this Hidden Dragon rank competition, I have prepared quite a lot of ace attacks. Yuan Hengying was very scared of Yi Chen. If it were any other contestant, he would not even bother to tell his opponent about the ace attacks that he had prepared. However, facing Yi Chen, Yuan Hengying did not dare to be careless at all. He hoped that Yi Chen would know that he had hidden his ace attacks, and that he would not be able to do anything during the battle. Yi Chen secretly laughed. How could he not know what Yuan Hengying was thinking? Of course, this method seemed simple, but it was actually quite practical. Unfortunately, he had used it on the wrong person. Alright, what's the point of talking so much? The battle will be over soon. Let's do it. Yi Chen decided to finish the battle as soon as possible. He was not interested in wasting time with Yuan Hengying at all, because Yuan Hengying was not at the same level as him at all. Yuan Hengying's face turned red. Yi Chen's impatient tone had pissed him off. Since when could he, Yuan Hengying, be looked down upon? Demon Eagle World. Hit. Growling, Yuan Hengying pushed his Jin Qi to its limit. The dark cyan-colored Jin Qi spread out from his body like the wings of an eagle. After that, an incomparably huge Jin Qi eagle claw swooshed across the sky, releasing an ancient evil power. Pop! The sword light flashed, and the Jin Qi eagle claw was shattered. Yi Chen walked towards Yuan Hengying step by step. Damn! Yuan Hengying was shocked. Although he knew that his ace attack, Demon Eagle World, would not be able to stop Yi Chen's counterattack, it was still out of his expectation that it would be broken within a second. His heart was beating intensely, Yuan Hengying was a bit panicked. However, when he saw Yi Chen walking towards him step by step, his panic was replaced by anger. So arrogant. Do you really think that I can't do anything to you? Demon Eagle revealing fist. Taking a heavy step forward with his right foot, Yuan Hengying clenched both of his fists and threw out a punch from the middle. That crazy dark blue Jin Qi was arranged in a weird pattern, and all of it was poured into his fist. In the next second, a horrifying eagle screech was heard. A slightly blurry demon eagle flew out. Before, Yuan Hengying had only thrown out the claws of the demon eagle. But now, under his anger, he had created the entire demon eagle, which had increased the power by at least 50%. No wonder he was a bit confident. Let's see how you are going to block. Before he finished his sentence, Yuan Hengying's face froze. In his sight, that extremely aggressive demon eagle had been cut in half by Yi Chen's sword before, and turned into nothingness. Then, a bright sword light filled his sight, and he could not see anything anymore. Swoosh! His protective Jin Qi was broken, and Yuan Hengying was blown away, crashing into the dark blue light wall. One sword attack. Instant kill. Seeing this, people from the Sky Eagle Castle Martial School did not look good. Yuan Hengying had lost way too fast, which caught them off guard. However, Yi Chen's improvement had shocked them even more. Back in the scorching ancient desert, Yi Chen could only fight against the outer masters of the multiple mountain martial school, and was not an opponent for any of the inner masters. But in just 1 year, his cultivation had not only reached the late clasping Yuan realm, but his attacking power had also increased drastically. Among all the people from the Sky Eagle Castle Martial School, besides the leader of the Sky Eagle Castle Martial School who was an early astral reaching realm warrior, no one dared to say that they could beat Yi Chen. In fact, they were all very clear that Yi Chen had not used all of his power yet. Yuan Hengying did not lose for nothing. They are not at the same level at all. The leader of the Sky Eagle Castle Martial School frowned as he glanced at Yi Chen, who had just walked off the stage. Yi Chen wins. After announcing the result, the judge of the Group 3 touched his chin and smiled. He thought that he had seen through Yi Chen, but it seemed like he was far from it. Yuan Hengying, who had a great chance of making it to the top 72, could not even handle one sword attack from him. Seriously speaking, there was no such thing as handling the attack, because Yuan Hengying did not even see how the sword got there. It seems like he should be the number 1 in the Group 3. The fact that there were not many powerful young warriors in the Group 3 was already known to everyone. Otherwise, the judge of the Group 3 would not dare to make such a claim. Off the stage, on the audience seating, everyone who had seen this battle was very surprised. They started to discuss it passionately. Another one who has hidden his strength. That sword was so fast. I thought that there were only Ting Imo and Gao Feng in the Group 3, but now, I do not dare to think like that anymore. At least, this guy named Yi Chen is not weaker than Ting Imo. He might even be stronger than him. Yeah, I think so too. His sword art was way too fast. Even I was shocked. I wonder how much of his power he had used. Maybe only 70 to 80%. Hearing everyone's words, Gao Feng shook his head. He did not think that Yi Chen had used 70 to 80% of his power. He might not even have used 60% of his power. He was a horrifying opponent. Of course, if he had used 60% of his power, Gao Feng would still have 30% chance of winning against Yi Chen. What he was afraid of was that his opponent did not even use 60% of his power. That would be horrifying. I don't think he would be that powerful. Gao Feng shook his head again. He looked at Yi Chen seriously. He might be a contestant that he would have to face in the group competition. Zhu Mei had also watched Yi Chen's battle. She could not help but ask, Yi Chen, how much of his power did you use? Half of half. Chapter 250. Zhu Mei and Qin Yulian looked at each other. They both knew that Yi Chen was very powerful, but they did not expect him to be this powerful. Half of half, that meant that he had not even used 30% of his power. His opponent was Yuan Hengying, who was ranked 59 in the last hidden dragon rank. Right then, Yi Chen had become a stranger in their eyes. It was not a stranger in terms of friendship, but a stranger in terms of power. There was a kind of strangeness called gap. Glancing at Lynch and Zhuang Fei, Qin Yulian forced a smile and thought to herself, you have set Yi Chen as your goal. Unfortunately, you do not know how tiring and desperate it is to catch up with him. From the moment he surpassed us, the gap between us had already been decided. Su Jing's fifth battle had ended with her victory. She walked down from the stage and saw Zhu Mei and Qin Yulian's expressions. She knew what was going on, but she shook her head silently. In her mind, Yi Chen was a monster. He had a calmness and willpower that did not match his age. Even she, who was always calm, felt ashamed of herself. With her sharp observation, she had never seen such horrifying qualities in any young man. Sometimes, she wondered if there was anything that could make him lose his mind. Unfortunately, besides Yi Chen himself, no one really knew him. In fact, Yi Chen sometimes did not know himself too well. Because Yi Chen was an orphan in the other world, he had to work hard and improve himself. Therefore, when other kids were playing around, he was already very mature. In some aspects, he was even more mature than an adult. After he became an adult, his mind was even more outstanding, and nothing could shake him. Of course, not every orphan was like Yi Chen. After all, everyone had a different way of growing up. However, after coming to this world, Yi Chen, who was seen as a piece of trash by others, was actually very smart. When he was bullied by his cousin Yi Chen, he knew how to be patient and think about the big picture. He didn't want to make his father feel bad, so he worked even harder behind the scenes, using 10 times the effort in exchange for a little reward. Otherwise, with his talent, it would be almost impossible for him to become an outer disciple of the Sky Cloud Martial School. However, everything has its pros and cons. Years of forbearance had caused the Yi Chen of this world to lose his sharpness, a sharpness that allowed him to advance bravely. Sometimes, losing one's sharpness was even more terrifying than having no talent. If everything had developed normally, and the current Yi Chen had not appeared, the chances of him becoming an inner disciple would have been extremely small, let alone becoming a core disciple or even his current position. Everything was like smoke in the past. After merging with Yi Chen's soul from this world, Yi Chen's weaknesses were infinitely reduced, while his strengths were infinitely magnified, creating a monster in the eyes of others. The fifth round, Yi Chen vs. Cui Chang. I admit defeat. Yi Chen's power was obvious to everyone. He was the first contestant to admit defeat. To this, Zhu Mei laughed and said, "You will have it easy from now on. Except for a few people in Group 3, basically no one would be able to compete with you. Instead of wasting time and being killed by you within a second, it would be better for you to save up your energy and spirit to fight against other contestants that you can handle." Yi Chen did not really care if there were people who had admitted defeat or not, since all he needed to do was wave his sword once on the stage, and it would consume almost no energy at all. On the other hand, Zhu Mei's battle would not be easy at all, so he reminded her, "With my estimation, in your group, there would be around 3 to 7 people who would get the full score. In the following battles, if you do not lose a single one, you would have a 100% chance of making it to the next round. If you lose one, you would have 50% chance of making it to the next round. If you lose 2, you would have less than 10% chance." Although Yi Chen's words were not accurate to a certain degree, it was still very close. It should be known that in terms of vision, even astral-reaching realm warriors might not be better than him. All the information of every contestant in Zhu Mei's group was in Yi Chen's head. Even if they were hiding their power, he could still see through most of them. Then, he added the probability and statistics, and finally came up with this number. Zhu Mei did not doubt him at all, so she said, "Then, in the next 5 battles, I would have to lose one. It would be a bit difficult, but I will try my best." She had just won the 5th battle, and now she had won 3 battles and lost 2. The first stage of the competition could be a bit lucky. As long as you are lucky enough, it should not be a problem for you to make it to the second stage. In the first stage of the competition, there would be more than 50 contestants in each group, and everyone would have to go through 10 battles. At most, they would run into 10 people, and the remaining 40 or so people would not have a chance at all. Therefore, even the weakest contestants would be able to get into the top few of their group if they were lucky enough. With Zhu Mei's power, it would not be a miracle for her to make it to the next round. Looks like Lynch has met his opponent. Right at that moment, the two's attention was attracted by the battle of the 11th group. The two people on the stage were none other than the North Snow Quick Blade Lynch, and the other was Wei Renjie, who was ranked 37th in the last Hidden Dragon rank. On the stage, the blade light was flying everywhere, and the human shadows were moving in a blur. Both of them were young warriors who had made great achievements in their blade arts, and it was hard to tell who they were. Yi Chen shook his head. Lynch was a bit unlucky. No matter cultivation or blade intent, Wei Renjie was way more powerful than Lynch. The reason why they were evenly matched right now was because Wei Renjie had not used all of his power yet. Obviously, he was just excited about the result. Good, not bad. Even if I give you another 1 or 2 years, I might not be able to beat you. Wei Renjie laughed out loud. His blade aura suddenly became even more powerful, pushing Lynch into an absolute disadvantage. Snow Dance Sky. Lynch did not have any expression on his face. He held his air-shattering blade with both of his hands, and his blade aura started to roll up. All of a sudden, it was like a snowstorm had started to fall on the stage, and the blade light was everywhere. Break! Without any technique, Wei Renjie held his blade with only one hand, jumped into the air, and threw out a blade attack. Boom! The snow-like blade light was shattered one after another, and Lynch crashed into the dark blue light wall. Thank you. Wei Renjie held his fists together as he put away his great blade and jumped off the stage. Off the stage, a lot of people were watching this battle and discussing it. Wei Renjie is indeed a blade art master of the young generation. His blade intent has at least reached the entry level. Lynch is not bad either. His blade art skills are no weaker than Wei Renjie's. The only thing he is lacking is his cultivation and blade intent. With enough time, it would not be impossible for him to catch up with Wei Renjie. Indeed. Normal blade artists are nothing in Wei Renjie's eyes. He obviously likes Lynch. Oh right, can Lynch make it into the top 10 new stars this year? It would be a bit difficult. Even if he could make it, he would probably be at the bottom. There are too many new warriors this year, and it would not be easy to stand out from the rest. Plus, there are also insane martial geniuses like Tua Baku and Qian Yun. There would be 2 less spots for no reason. Do not forget that Xikong Sheng's disciple sister, Gu Yuyun, is also not to be underestimated. Back in the day, the life and death realm king of the Floating Mountain Martial School, the Stone King, had offended too many people, which led to his whole family being killed. His bloodline had been cut off. But, no one knew that the Stone King had an illegitimate daughter outside, and Gu Yuyun was indeed the descendant of that illegitimate daughter. She has the king bloodline of the Stone King. Adding Gu Yuyun, the top 3 of the top 10 new stars have already been decided. The rest of the 7 new stars still need to be discovered. The top 10 new stars were not a regular title, because there would always be some extremely talented martial geniuses appearing in every Hidden Dragon rank competition. If they were bright enough, they would all be ranked. After the competitions of the Hidden Dragon rank had finished, those warriors who did not come to watch the competitions would be able to know how powerful those young warriors were through their understanding of the top 10 new stars. That way, they would be able to have a better understanding of them. Otherwise, with so many contestants in the competition, it would be really hard to understand all of them. The 6th battle, Yi Chen against Xue Chuyan. I give up. The pretty-looking young lady raised up her hand, indicating that she had given up. The 7th battle, Yi Chen against Guo Heng. I give up. The 8th battle, Yi Chen, the 9th battle, Yi Chen. No one knew if it was because Yi Chen had killed Yuan Hengying with only one sword attack, but from the 5th battle onwards, all of the contestants who were going against Yi Chen had given up, not wanting to waste any more time. As for the other people from the Windy Nation, they seemed to be having a hard time. Out of the 9 battles, Su Jing had won 8 and lost 1. It was not a bad loss, as her opponent was a young warrior who was ranked 22 in the last hidden dragon rank, who was extremely powerful. Even so, Su Jing did not lose immediately. She had fought for hundreds of attacks before the winner was decided, which had surprised a lot of people and made her into the top 10 new stars. After Lynch had lost to Wei Renjie, he had lost another battle. His opponent was also a young warrior who was ranked at the top of the last hidden dragon rank. Zhuang Fei had won 7 and lost 2. Su Wen had won 6 and lost 3. Qin Yulian had won 6 and lost 3. Zhu Mei's luck seemed to have run out. From the 8th battle onwards, she had lost all the way to the 9th battle. Without any surprises, there was no chance for her to make it to the next round. It would be a lie if Zhu Mei said that she was not disappointed. But she also understood that it was rare for her to be able to make it this far. She still had one last battle, and no matter if she won or lost, she would have to use all of her energy and make a breakthrough from there. Only then would she not waste this opportunity. The 10th battle, Yi Chen against Qin Jie. Qin Jie did not choose to give up. He was not a nobody. In the last hidden dragon rank, he was ranked 43, so he did not think that he would lose to Yi Chen. Take my most powerful attack, Tiger Break Kill. His aura was like that of a lion or a tiger. Qin Jie had crossed dozens of meters, throwing out a punch towards Yi Chen. Driven by that aura, the air in front of him seemed to have been sucked out instantly. Qin. 2 beams of sword light flashed through. The first one had broken the aura, while the second one had torn apart Qin Jie's protective Jinqi layer. The sword pressure had blown his opponent away. Yi Chen wins. The Group 3 judge was not surprised at all. He raised his hand, indicating that Yi Chen had won the last battle. Impressive. Once he makes his move, the battle would be over instantly. Top 10 new stars, he could be ranked 5th. That Su Jing would be ranked 8th, and Gao Feng would be 9th. Lynch's cultivation is a bit weaker, so it would not be his turn to be in the top 10 new stars. In everyone's mind, Tuo Baku would be ranked first without a doubt. Xian Yun, a disciple of the rank 6 martial institution, the Sunset Martial School, and Gu Yuyun, a disciple of the rank 6 martial institution, the Floating Mountain Martial School, would definitely be ranked 2nd and 3rd. The 4th would be a rare martial genius from a rank 7 martial institution from the Ice Crystal Empire, and the 5th would be Yi Chen. The 6th and 7th would still be the top disciples from other rank 6 martial institutions. The 8th would be Su Jing, the 9th would be Gao Feng, and the 10th would be a top disciple from another rank 6 martial institution. This ranking might not be accurate, but judging from the battles right now, it should be about right. After all, some of the people had been hiding their power, and no one would be able to tell. Chapter 251. The first stage of the competition had officially ended. There were 4 people who had gotten full marks in the 3rd group, Yi Chen, Gao Feng, and 2 other famous young warriors from the last hidden dragon rank. The 4 of them had not run into each other in the past 10 rounds of competition, or else there would be 1 or 2 less people with full marks. The other groups had almost the same number of people with full marks as the 3rd group. The group with the highest number of full marks only had 8 people. After all, sometimes when 2 powerful warriors were fighting, one of them would definitely lose. It was not like the group with the most powerful warriors would have more people with full marks, it was a completely different concept. Unfortunately, except for Yi Chen, Su Jing and Lynch, the other 4 people from the Windy Nation had all been eliminated. Qin Yulian's competition was a bit unfair. The Sky Holy Water spell from the Rudra Martial School was at least a mid-rank Earth Realm martial art, but the lack of Jinqi was its biggest weakness. She had the upper hand in the beginning, but after hundreds of rounds, Qin Yulian still lost, because her Jinqi was not as dense as her opponent's. The leader of the Rudra Martial School, Long Bai, smiled lightly. She did not seem to care much about it. She mumbled to herself, "It's time to teach her the real martial art." The reason why she did not teach her martial arts before was because the Hidden Dragon rank competition was just around the corner, and it would be hard to improve her power in a short period of time. If she was too impatient, it would actually lower her power. Martial arts were different from martial arts. Martial arts were the foundation, and could not be changed easily. Leader, it seems like using the small blue dragon tag to help the Sky Cloud Martial School was a wise move. This brat is not simple. The headmaster of the Rudra Martial School, the mature lady, smiled. Long Bai nodded. As long as he can get into the top 10, he will be qualified to be noticed by my great-grandpa. I will tell him when the time is right. I believe he will be interested. Telling the leader after getting into the top 10. Isn't it too early? No, I think it's too late. Didn't you notice the time of his rise? He has only used 3 years to get to where he is now. This is not something that normal people can do. That's true, I almost forgot. The two were talking through their zhenqi, so people around them could not hear what they were talking about. In the Sky Cloud Martial School's formation, the fourth elder said happily, Yi Chen and Su Jing have both advanced. Below the rank 7 martial schools, the Sky Cloud Martial School is definitely one of the best. The great elder smiled. Don't be too happy yet. The second stage of the elimination competition is about to begin. That will be the most brutal competition. Half of the 24 people will be eliminated. Wait and see. I can't wait anymore. Luo Xinglia was so excited. Luo Hanshan, who was standing aside, let out a bitter smile. He was happy for Yi Chen and Su Jing, but at the same time, he was also very envious of them. If only he could join the match, even one match would be worth it. After resting for about an hour, the second stage of the knockout stage began. According to the rules of the competition, any 2 groups would be combined into one group, which would be the 12th group. However, the number of the group would not be 3 or 12, but 7, because these 2 groups would be the 7th group to be combined. Different from the previous groups, each group now had 24 people. Out of the 24 people, only 12 of them would make it to the next stage, while the other 12 would be eliminated. As for the 12 people who made it to the next stage, no matter what their results in the ranking competitions were, they would all be the top warriors in this year's Hidden Dragon rank. 24 people fighting for 12 places. It seemed like there was only a 50% chance, but for the contestants, it was extremely cruel. Being able to stand out from all the groups was already a symbol of glory and power. Without exaggerating, they would be the elites among the young warriors of the South Rudra region. However, in the second stage of the knockout competition, half of the elite warriors would be eliminated. The pressure would be huge, more than 2 times more than what they had experienced before. There were quite a lot of powerful warriors in the 7th group. Not to mention Yi Chen, Gao Feng, Teng Yamo, and the 2 famous young warriors from the last Hidden Dragon rank, the 12th group would not be less powerful than the 3rd group. They might even have more powerful warriors than the 3rd group. For example, the head disciple of the Ice Extreme Martial School, who was ranked 7th in the last Hidden Dragon rank, Gu Qing, who was ranked 10th in the last Hidden Dragon rank, Wu Liangyu, who was ranked 25th in the last Hidden Dragon rank, Tang Xiaoshan, who was ranked 4th in the top 10 new stars, and Gu Tingfang, who was ranked 10th in the top 10 new stars. The first battle, Teng Yamo against Gu Tingfang. The first battle of the first round had begun. Both of the contestants were not unknown warriors, they were all powerful warriors from their groups. In the 3rd group, Teng Yamo had only lost to Gao Feng, and was ranked 5th in terms of points. Gu Tingfang, who was ranked 10th in the top 10 new stars, had only lost 1 battle as well, which was against Gu Qing, who was ranked 10th in the last Hidden Dragon rank. Teng Yamo did not dare to underestimate Gu Tingfang. Ever since he had lost to the unknown Gao Feng, he did not dare to underestimate any of the young warriors anymore. Shoo! Taking out his thin sword, Teng Yamo did not attack right away. Instead, he stared at Gu Tingfang. Gu Tingfang's weapons were two light red short blades. They were 2 feet and 8 inches long, and the back of the blades was curved like a snake. The edges of the blades shone with a cold light, drawing out beams of light under the sunlight. Please teach me. Stomping on the ground, Gu Tingfang attacked first. Her whole body seemed to have become weightless as she traveled dozens of meters and appeared in front of Teng Yamo within a second. Dang 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 dang, the sound of the dagger colliding with the thin sword was endless. Blazing sparks flew in all directions. It was exceptionally gorgeous and ostentatious, filled with the beauty of violence. Wild goose attack. Gu Tingfang yelled with a low voice. The 2 short blades were thrown out at an unimaginable speed, attacking towards Teng Yamo, who was trying his best to defend. Chin. Countless sparks flew out, turning into 2 beautiful light bands that looked like the wings of wild geese. This was the horrifying power of the wild goose attack. Even the direction of the sparks would be affected. Teng Yamo kept backing out. It seemed like he could not stop Gu Tingfang's attack at all. Teng Yamo is going to lose. Although Zhu Mei and Qin Yulian had lost the right to participate in the second stage of the knockout competition, since they had participated in the first stage of the knockout competition, Zhu Mei and Qin Yulian could still watch from below the stage. They did not need to return to the audience seating. Yi Chen shook his head. Within 10 attacks, Gu Tingfang is going to lose. What do you mean? Zhu Mei and Qin Yulian looked at Yi Chen curiously. Yi Chen said, the first round of attack, the second round of attack, the third round of attack. This is the unchanging truth. Gu Tingfang's attacks seemed to be very aggressive, but she had used too much power. She did not save any power. She might be able to win against a weaker contestant, but Teng Mo's power is not weaker than Gu Tingfang's, and he is even more experienced than her. It would be impossible for her to win with one attack. Once she loses her momentum, it will be Teng Mo's time to fight back. At that time, it would be almost impossible for her to win. Zhu Mei asked, is it not a good thing to attack too aggressively? Not necessarily. What I mean is that Gu Tingfang's battle experience is a bit lacking. When facing an opponent at the same level, she should never let her opponent control the rhythm. Right now, the situation seems to be in Gu Tingfang's favor, but the rhythm is already in Teng Mo's hands. If I were her, I would change my fighting style before my momentum is exhausted, and I would disrupt the rhythm. That way, I would have a higher chance of winning. After all, she already had the upper hand. As soon as Yi Chen finished talking, the situation on the stage changed. Gu Tingfang, who had the upper hand since the beginning, was forced to step back. Just as Yi Chen had expected, the momentum could not keep rising without falling. When it reached a certain level, Gu Tingfang's momentum and blade finally started to fall back. Right at that moment, Teng Yamo found a small flaw and launched a fierce counterattack. His thin sword, which was only as thick as 2 fingers, was like the autumn wind, like the flowing water. It was aimed at Gu Tingfang's weakness, completely disrupting her rhythm and mind. Gu Tingfang was in a hurry, and she had lost all of her previous elegance. Right now, she just wanted to win. Unfortunately, Teng Yamo would not let her do that. His thin sword maintained a stable rhythm, continuously stabbing out. In this way, he did not have the weakness of having too much momentum, and he could always suppress Gu Tingfang, who did not have enough time to adjust herself. Dang! With a horizontal slash, the short blade in Gu Tingfang's right hand flew out. I lost. Gu Tingfang stopped moving and said with a bitter smile. Teng Yamo was shocked. This time, he had won by luck. In the situation where they were at the same power level, the battle experience had decided the result. If they were to compete again, he would not have any confidence to win. Luckily, he had won, and he would not have to worry about running into her in the next 9 rounds. Both of them left the stage, and the second battle of the first round began. Just like what you said. Yi Chen, it is such a waste that you did not become a martial skill master. Zhu Mei's face was full of admiration. There were masters in the Sky Cloud martial school who taught them martial skills. Besides teaching them martial skills, they would also teach them battling experiences. However, those experiences were obviously not as advanced as Yi Chen's, because Yi Chen was always able to get to the point and come up with countermeasures. Yi Chen smiled. Some of the powerful warriors would teach their disciples, and some would not. Although his eyes and experience were very advanced, he might not be able to teach his disciple well. Teaching a disciple was not about holding his hand, but about letting his disciple learn by himself. In Yi Chen's world, there was a saying, the master leads the way, but the training depends on the disciple himself. Of course, in a short period of time, Yi Chen could indeed teach someone a great battling experience. But in the long run, he would not be so sure anymore. After all, there was nothing that could be more practical than learning by oneself. Other people's knowledge would always be separated by a layer, and it would not be easy to break it. The battles of the seventh group were not too fast or too slow. In the next few battles, Bing Ling, Gu Qing, Tang Xiaoshan and a couple of other powerful young warriors had all won their battles. Bing Ling was indeed the head disciple of the Ice Extreme Martial School, ranked 7th in the last Hidden Dragon rank. Her opponent had not even attacked before he was blown away by a punch. Gu Qing, as a warrior ranked 10th in the last Hidden Dragon rank, was also extremely powerful. He had blown away his opponent within a second. As for Tang Xiaoshan, besides Yi Chen, who was a hidden rank 9 martial institution martial genius, he was without a doubt the brightest one among all the new stars. He was only second to Tuo Baku, and even Qian Yun and Gu Yuyun, who were ranked above him, could not compete with him. The martial institution he came from was only a normal rank 7 martial institution in the Ice Crystal Empire, which was not as powerful as the older rank 7 martial institutions, not to mention the top rank 7 martial institutions. But somehow, he had appeared, a martial genius who was thought to be one of the most powerful martial institutions. He had the chance to compete for the top 10, and even if he did not make it, he would still be able to make it to the top 20. Without any effort, Tang Xiaoshan had won the battle. His powerful power had even made Gu Qing, who was ranked 10th in the last Hidden Dragon rank, frown. The 8th battle of the first round, Yi Chen against Gao Feng. After a couple of powerful warriors had appeared, it was Yi Chen's turn. His opponent was the popular warrior from the third group, Gao Feng. Even Ting Mo was not his opponent. Tang Xiaoshan was very confident in his observation. He said to the few people next to him, Gao Feng is still not quite there yet. He has about 30% chance of winning. But if Yi Chen wants to win against him, it would not be that easy. Chapter 252. Hearing his own name, Gao Feng jumped onto the battling platform with a serious face. Yi Chen did not hesitate. He tapped his foot on the ground and appeared on the battling platform almost at the same time as Gao Feng. The two stood 50 meters apart. You are very powerful. But, if you want to win 1 point from me, it will not be that easy. With his right hand holding onto his sword handle, Gao Feng said word by word. Yi Chen smiled lightly, it will be easy. Gao Feng frowned. According to his estimation, he should have 30% chance of beating Yi Chen, and it was not like he did not have any chance at all. But somehow, seeing that calm expression on Yi Chen's face, he did not have any confidence at all. For the first time, he felt like he did not know where to start. Shocked, Gao Feng thought to himself, perhaps he still has more power. On the judge's seat, the Group 3 judge and the Group 12 judge sat together. The Group 12 judge said, Gao Feng is a good seed. I can tell that he has been hiding part of his power. His sword intent should be close to completion. The Group 3 judge nodded, what I am curious about is that up until now, Yi Chen has not shown any trace of sword intent. I guess he has not learned it yet. Although the sword intent is a benchmark for sword artists, not every powerful sword artist has it. So, who can tell for sure? You are right. But it is a pity. If he had the sword intent, it would not be impossible for him to get into the top 10. The Group 3 judge had been watching Yi Chen win every single battle, so he was more or less looking forward to it. He hoped that Yi Chen would be able to shine, and that there would be more to watch. But of course, he knew that the sword intent was not that easy to learn. It was related to the comprehensive ability, but it was also related to the talent in the sword arts. But, it did not mean that just because one was talented in the sword arts, they would be able to learn the sword intent. There were a lot of astral reaching realm sword artists in this true spirit continent who had not learned the sword intent yet. And some of the warriors who did not have the comprehensive ability and the sword art talent, and did not have a high cultivation, had somehow learned the sword intent. There were some rumors about the sword intent in the true spirit continent. It was said that in order to learn the sword intent, one would need to have a pure spirit or reach the Sea of Souls realm. These two conditions were the easiest to learn the sword intent. The rest would depend on the situation, since there would always be exceptions. Senior Brother Gao, if you defeat him, it will be your 11th consecutive victory. At this moment, a young woman's voice came from the audience stands. Gao Feng's expression changed. He looked over and shook his head with a bitter smile. Defeating Yi Chen was easier said than done. He could only hope that Yi Chen's strength was not beyond his imagination. The Star Scar sword appeared in his left hand. Without taking it out of the scabbard, Yi Chen said, "It seems like your sister disciple really wants you to win. Unfortunately, I will not go easy on you. You better not go easy on me. I will beat you fair and square." Gao Feng clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles turned white. The person who spoke was his junior martial sister, who was also his childhood sweetheart. This time, he had promised her that he would definitely achieve 12 consecutive victories to commemorate the 12 years they had known each other. Chin. Gao Feng's sword was taken out of the scabbard. The sword light flashed once, and an invisible sword pressure attacked toward Yi Chen. The calm air suddenly started to ripple like water, being pulled to an extreme. Pop! The sword pressure and the watery air had been cut open. Yi Chen's sword was only halfway out of the scabbard. Such a powerful sword aura. The judges of the 3rd and 12th group were shocked. Right then, Yi Chen seemed to be a little bit more serious. Over at the 2nd group, the head disciple of the Heartless Martial School, Li Daoxian, had accidentally noticed this. He shook his head lightly, knowing that it would be useless to not learn the sword intent. Sword explosion. The sword pressure was only the beginning. Gao Feng performed the ace attack that he had used to beat Ting Yimo. He threw out a sword attack, bringing up the sword wind and the sword qi. Pop! Another crisp sound was heard. The sword wind and the sword qi had been shattered, and the tip of Yi Chen's sword was finally revealed from the scabbard. The sword light that was as deep as the stars shone. Impressive. Gao Feng took a deep breath. He had never seen a sword artist at the same level as him who could break his ultimate move with only sword momentum. However, this was just the beginning. He was a sword artist who had comprehended the sword intent. Unfortunately, 2 months ago, his sword intent had officially entered the entry level. Pushing his sword intent, Gao Feng's sword aura was extremely condensed. It was indestructible, and nothing could shake it, including Yi Chen's sword aura. In the next second, Gao Feng suddenly appeared in front of Yi Chen. The sound of metal clashing and the burning sparks spread out in all directions. Below the stage, in the spectator seats, many of the younger generation and the spectating martial artists could only see 2 blurry figures, one blue and one green, crisscrossing and flashing. The most eye-catching thing was the sword light that was everywhere. Every single one of them was breathtaking. After which, they saw numerous shallow scratches appearing on the stage. The scratches were incomparably sharp. With a glance, even one's mind would be pierced through. Judging from the current situation, Gao Feng and Yi Chen's power were almost the same. One had learned the entry-level sword intent, while the other had unparalleled sword art skills. His sword aura was horrifying. On the huge battling platform, the long sword in Gao Feng's hand kept moving. The sword light was extremely sharp, and every time he waved it out, it would be extremely threatening. Sometimes, when his Jin Qi was extremely powerful, before the tip of the sword even reached its target, there would already be burning sparks shooting out between the two, which was quite shocking. Compared to Gao Feng's unpredictable sword light, Yi Chen was like an enhanced version of his opponent. His Star Scar sword was unrestrained and untraceable. Every time he attacked, it was flawless, which was out of everyone's expectation. It made Gao Feng unable to gain the upper hand even with his sword intent. Of course, Yi Chen did not dare to be careless. Without using his sword intent, he would still have to use the poetic perspective of his sky-shattering clouds. He did not plan to use the poetic perspective of his lone peak kill yet. It was not because the poetic perspective of the lone peak kill was not as powerful as the sky-shattering clouds. In fact, once the poetic perspective of the lone peak kill was completed, it would be even more powerful than the sky-shattering clouds. However, without the help of the sword intent, the poetic perspective of the lone peak kill would not be able to reach its peak. The poetic perspective of the lone peak 13 swords was the origin of Yi Chen's sword intent. After it had been completely combined, the poetic perspective of the lone peak kill would also be closely related to the sword intent. If he did not have the sword intent, Yi Chen would not be able to completely combine the lone peak 13 swords and create his most powerful sword movement, the completed lone peak kill. As for the sky-shattering clouds, it would also need the sword intent to reach its peak. However, it was less dependent on the sword intent than the lone peak kill. Plus, the sky-shattering clouds was a frontal attack, while the lone peak kill was different. The poetic perspective of the lone peak kill was the essence of the lone peak kill. Without the poetic perspective of the lone peak kill, the power of the lone peak kill would drop by at least one level. On the stage, human figures flashed everywhere. The sword light flew everywhere. Beams of sword chi occasionally leaked out from the affected area, creating ripples on the dark blue light wall. How is this possible? I am older than him, and I have also learned the sword intent. How could I not have the upper hand at all? Just how powerful is his sword art? The long sword in his hand was waved out like lightning. Gao Feng was getting more and more shocked. Towards the end, he had already been convinced by Yi Chen's sword art. As the battle entered the most intense stage, Gao Feng's face looked extremely serious. His eyes had almost stopped blinking. Together with his mental power, he watched every single movement of Yi Chen, hoping to find a tiny flaw. As long as there was a tiny flaw, he would be able to fight back aggressively. After a while, Gao Feng finally gave up. Yi Chen did not have a single flaw. At least for him, Yi Chen was flawless. Even if there was a flaw, that kind of weird flaw could have been purposely made by his opponent to disrupt his rhythm. Taking a step back, Gao Feng held his sword with both of his hands and threw out a sword attack. Ghost Wind. Since there is no flaw, then I will create one myself. Gao Feng had used all of his power for this sword attack. His sword intent had been completely condensed into the sword wind. A ghostly cry was heard. That horrifying sword wind turned into sword chi from time to time, then disappeared from time to time. The sword intent is not bad, but the poetic perspective of the sword art is not that high. The reason why Yi Chen was able to fight on par with his opponent without using his sword intent was not only because of his powerful sword techniques and sword aura, but also because of his powerful poetic perspective. With the two combined, even Gao Feng, who had learned the entry-level sword intent, could not force him to use his sword intent. As Gao Feng took a step back, Yi Chen also took a step back. He held up his Star Scar sword with both of his hands and threw it down vertically with an aura of thunder and lightning. Sky-shattering clouds. Swoosh, swoosh, there was a light sparkle in the air. Gao Feng's sword wind had been shattered immediately, splashing everywhere like water. Meanwhile, Yi Chen's attack had disappeared as well. Gao Feng's expression changed suddenly as his eyes looked determined. I was planning to save this attack for the last moment. But now, you have what it takes for me to use it. His entry-level sword intent spread out, surrounding Gao Feng. He held the sword handle tightly with his right hand, while his left hand was on the end of the handle. In the next second, an extremely sharp sword aura exploded. Together with his slim body, his whole body looked like a great sword that was about to be taken out of its scabbard. Hee, this Gao Feng is not bad. I did not expect that he would have an even more powerful ace attack. Yi Chen is going to lose. Tang Xiaoshan crossed his arms in front of his chest, a smile appearing on his face. Facing Gao Feng, who had an extremely sharp aura, Yi Chen shook his head, sword intent. I know it too. I was planning to fight more. As for Gao Feng's sword art skills, Yi Chen was a bit impressed. It was just like how Wei Renjie felt about Lynch. Otherwise, there would be no need for him to waste so much time. He could have taken care of his opponent as soon as he got on the stage. With his power, it was not impossible. What? He has also learned the sword intent. The judge of the third group was shocked. A horrifying sharp intent burst out, and Yi Chen's aura was completely different from before. His blue robe danced in the air, and an invisible sword aura that had been infused with sword intent had pierced through Gao Feng's sword aura without any mercy. Gao Feng's sword aura, which had been rising up, seemed like a child's joke under this attack. It was like a balloon that had been deflated, and it started to deflate. Gao Feng was terrified. Is this his real power? Only Gao Feng himself knew how powerful the ace attack that he had prepared so carefully was. As long as he threw out this sword attack, even those who were slightly more powerful than him would have a hard time. However, he had not expected that Yi Chen had not only learned the sword intent, but also used it to a higher level than him. A sword light flashed across in the air. Gao Feng did not even have the chance to attack. His Zhenqi layer had been shattered, and he was thrown into the dark blue light wall. Chapter 253. One sword attack. Gao Feng had lost. Everyone who was watching the battle was shocked. The whole place was dead silent. Before this, no one would have thought that Yi Chen had hidden his sword intent, which was the pride of a sword artist. He had only used his sword art to compete on the stage and beat all the top young warriors, winning 11 battles in a row. What was even more unexpected was that once Yi Chen had released his sword intent, Gao Feng did not even have the chance to attack. He had lost right away, and in such a straightforward manner. If Gao Feng were only a normal young warrior, people would not be so shocked. But in the first stage of the competition, he had beaten Ting Imo, who was ranked 19 in the last Hidden Dragon rank. And just like Yi Chen, he had won all the battles. Therefore, no matter how you looked at it, Gao Feng was not a normal warrior. He was definitely one of the top warriors among the young generation. However, a powerful warrior like him could not even handle one attack from Yi Chen. The huge contrast had shocked a lot of people. Amateurs would just watch for fun, but the experts would see for themselves. Most of the clasping Yuan realm warriors only knew that Yi Chen had the sword intent, but they did not know what had happened in that second. However, the powerful clasping Yuan realm warriors and astral reaching realm warriors had seen some of the details. For example, Yi Chen's sword intent flashed once and then disappeared, and it was hard to tell exactly what kind of realm he had reached. Also, right now, they could finally feel how fast Yi Chen's sword was. It had already surpassed the reaction speed of warriors at the same cultivation level. Most importantly, the second he threw out his sword, Yi Chen had shown the elegance of a sword artist. Not only did his sword art move as he wished, but it was also very fast. So impressive. Is this the power of the fifth in the top 10 new stars? Why do I feel like he could be the second? Some of the warriors who were watching the battle could not help but say. Someone next to him said, I have the same feeling. Gao Feng is the ninth in the top 10 new stars after all. But he still could not handle one serious sword attack from Yi Chen. It is not certain whether he is serious or not. Haven't you noticed? Until now, has Yi Chen tried his best? Only Gao Feng was able to force out his sword intent. This year's Hidden Dragon rank competitions are indeed full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Before, there were top young warriors like Xikongsheng, and now, there are the top 10 new stars. All of them are hiding their powers. Before the most crucial moment, no one would know what kind of realm they have reached. Now that's hot-blooded. What's the point of a match that can be seen through at a glance? This is really exciting. I really want to see who among the younger generation can laugh until the end, and who can be ranked in the top 10. There were way too many people who were paying attention to this battle, since there were only 6 groups left. It was obvious which group would be more interesting to watch. The battle between Yi Chen and Gao Feng was very exciting. In the beginning, it was clear that they were evenly matched, but in the end, the situation changed drastically. First, Gao Feng was forced to use his ace attack, and his momentum increased drastically. It seemed like he was going to win, but who would have thought that Yi Chen would have even more attacks, which exposed the fact that he had comprehended the sword intent and killed Gao Feng with one sword attack, showing off the power of a sword artist. Such an exciting battle had made people's blood boil. Their faces turned red, and they could not help but want to scream out loud. The Group 12 judge froze for a while before he said, "A real sword artist needs both a powerful attacking power and the power to kill with one attack. This kid has both, which is very rare." The Group 3 judge nodded. It is easy to become a warrior, but it is hard to become a sword artist. Most people only have the talent to be a sword artist, but not the qualities that a sword artist should have. As astral reaching realm warriors, the two had seen a lot of powerful sword artists. They knew how hard it was to deal with a sword artist, since they did not seem to have too big of a weakness, because they were experts in finding weaknesses. That sword attack of Yi Chen seemed to be very fast and casual, but it had actually landed on Gao Feng's weakest spot, which gave Gao Feng no chance to fight back at all. A light flashed through the head disciple of the Heartless Martial School, Li Daoxian. Yi Chen, who had learned the sword intent, had piqued his interest. As for how long this interest could last, it would depend on how powerful Yi Chen really was. If it was only this much, then it would only take 3 sword attacks to finish him off. Xikongsheng and the other top young warriors did not have any expression on their faces. The power that Yi Chen had shown so far was nothing special to them. Reaching their level, the gap between them was huge. If one's power could not be ranked in the top 5 or top 10, then he would not even be worth their attention. There are too many people who have not shown their real power yet. He is only a clown. The head disciple of the Skyfall Martial School, Lin Yun, sneered. The head disciple of the Sky Demon Martial School, Mo Yen, used his Sky Demon eyes. A dark red light flashed through his eyes as he said lightly, "He will not be in the top 10. Murong Qingqing frowned slightly. This head disciple of hers looked very calm and collected on the surface, but he was actually very prideful. As one of the top 2 martial arts of the Sky Flying Demon Martial School, the Sky Demon art was indeed very powerful. The Sky Demon eyes that came with it could see through a person's aura. However, martial arts were not omnipotent. Moreover, his Sky Demon art was only at the 10th realm, so how could he see through a person's power? On the battling platform, putting his Star Scar sword back into its scabbard, Yi Chen said, "Thank you," before flying off the platform. Gao Feng covered his chest with his left hand, but he was not hurt at all. He knew that Yi Chen had held back. Yi Chen's control of his power was just like his sword art, which had already reached the realm of being able to do whatever he wanted. It was not a shame to lose to him. Plus, he had learned something from this battle. Getting off the platform, Gao Feng sent a Zhenqi message to his sister disciple, "Sorry. I have lost. It's okay. He is just too powerful. I just want to watch your battle. I don't care about anything else. You are right. He is indeed too powerful. I think his power is even more powerful than what everyone thinks. Gao Feng said in shock. Unfortunately, besides his sister disciple, no one else heard what he said. Pap! The iron ball in his hand had been crushed. Tang Xiaoshan's face froze. He had just said that Yi Chen was going to lose, but the result was completely different from what he had expected. He had been humiliated. His power is not bad. It seems like I have underestimated him. Tang Xiaoshan twitched the corner of his mouth. The battle continued. The next contestant was the third disciple of the Sky Demon Martial School, Wu Liangyu. His opponent was the young warrior who had made it to the next round with all his wins. The two had exchanged 3 rounds of attacks. Wu Liangyu won. The Sky Demon Martial School is slightly more powerful in terms of the number of top disciples. In addition to the top 3 disciples, there are also 3 disciples who have made it to the second stage of the knockout competition, adding up to 6 disciples. As for the other 6th grade sects, the most disciples who have made it to the second stage of the knockout competition are no more than 5, and at least 3. Of course, the Sky Demon Martial School has the advantage in terms of quantity. But in terms of quality, no one can compete with the Floating Mountain Martial School. There is no other way. The Floating Mountain Martial School has Xikongsheng. Besides the Fire Spirit Prince, no one else would be able to compete with him. Not necessarily. That Lin Yun's chi is not weaker than the Fire Spirit Prince's. In some aspects, he is even more powerful. The fight for the first place should be between the 3 of them. Not necessarily. Tuobaku should be counted in. The last Hidden Dragon rank 9 young warrior had been blown away by him with only 1 punch. Is this kind of power not enough to compete for the top 3? Although Wu Liangyu had performed very well, unfortunately, with Yi Chen's performance in front of him, Wu Liangyu was definitely not as good as him. Therefore, with his status, the crowd started to discuss about the battle between the top young warriors and the Sky Demon Martial School. They all had their own opinions. Yi Chen and Su Jing stood together. Next to them were Zhu Mei and Qin Yulian, who had lost the right to compete. Qin Yulian watched the matches of each group and sighed. This year's competition is too intense. Many of the contestants from last year's ranking have been eliminated. I wonder how many of the contestants from last year's ranking will remain after the second round of elimination. Zhu Mei said, looking at the current situation, at least 30 to 40% will be eliminated. 30 or 40% was more than 20 people. This was a shocking number. Yi Chen did not say anything. The first stage of the competition had indeed eliminated a lot of contestants from the last Hidden Dragon rank, such as Lin Yu, who was ranked 70th, Zhuang Fei, who was ranked 68th, Wei Dongxi, who was ranked 66th, Kai Yueyao, who was ranked 61st, Lu Zhao, who was ranked 61st, and Yuan Hengying, who was ranked 59th. These were all powerful warriors from the Hidden Dragon rank that Yi Chen had met in the scorching ancient desert, but now, they had all been eliminated. These were only the Hidden Dragon rank warriors from the 9 nations, including the Windy Nation. Including the other nations, up until now, there had already been 20 people who had been eliminated. Therefore, the 30 to 40% that Zhu Mei said was still an understatement. After the second round of elimination, the total number of people who had been eliminated from the last Hidden Dragon rank should be around 25 to 30. Of course, there were also a couple of people from the 9 nations who had not been eliminated, such as Mo Wuxia, who was ranked 54th, and Xue Hen, who was ranked 57th. The 2 of them used to be the top warriors in the Heaven Dream Ancient region, but unfortunately, when they arrived at the Hidden Dragon Ancient City, they had barely managed to struggle on the edge of being eliminated. Whether they could make it to the next round or not would depend on the luck that they usually did not care about. The new generation had replaced the old generation. How many old warriors had been eliminated meant how many new young warriors had been replaced. Not to mention the other nations, just the Windy Nation alone had Yi Chen, Su Jing and Lynch, which was 3 times better than the last Hidden Dragon rank, when only Zhuang Fei was in the Hidden Dragon rank. Therefore, the Windy Nation had not only not declined, but had actually become a lot stronger. The 12th battle of the second group had begun, and the contestant was indeed Su Jing. Seeing that Su Jing had easily suppressed her opponent, Yi Chen had realized something. He thought to himself, it turns out that Su Jing's martial arts and martial skills have not been trained to a very high level. It seems that she has not trained for a long time after all. Give her 1 more year, and she might be able to compete for the top 10. Yi Chen had figured out that Su Jing had changed her martial art. If he had guessed it right, Su Jing had changed her martial art after she came back from the Heaven Dream Ancient region, and it was an extremely high-level body-strengthening martial art. However, it was only a year before the Hidden Dragon rank competition, and body-strengthening martial arts were extremely hard to train. It would be impossible for Su Jing to train her body-strengthening martial art to a very high level within a year, which was her weakness. After all, those old generation young warriors had all trained a martial art for 3 years or even more. If Su Jing had 3 years to train, even Yi Chen could not be sure what level Su Jing could reach, because Su Jing's current power was already horrifying. With a thunderous punch, she had broken her opponent's protective Zhenqi layer. Su Jing had easily won the first point in the second stage of the competition. Yi Chen chuckled as he turned his attention to his own group. The second round of the competition was about to begin. Who would be his opponent? Chapter 254. The first battle of the second round, Bing Ling against Gu Qing. As the judge's voice faded, the huge audience suddenly quieted down. Warriors who had the right to participate in the second round of the competition were not weak warriors. If the Hidden Dragon rank could be expanded to 144 people, then all of the contestants in the audience would be on the rank. They would all be the elites of the elites, the top warriors of the young generation. And Bing Ling and Gu Qing were undoubtedly the top warriors. Bing Ling, the head disciple of the Ice Extreme Martial School, a rank 6 institution in the Ice Crystal Empire. She was ranked 7th in the last Hidden Dragon rank, and was one of the most popular contestants for the top 5 this time. Gu Qing, the head disciple of the Blue Cloud Pavilion, a rank 7 institution in the Grey Mystery Nation. He was ranked 10th in the last Hidden Dragon rank, and was one of the most popular contestants for the top 10 this time. Judging from the surface, Gu Qing was obviously slightly weaker than Bing Ling. His martial institution was 1 rank lower, and his Hidden Dragon rank was 3 ranks lower. Do not underestimate the rank of a martial institution. The higher the rank of a martial institution, the higher the rank of the martial arts they collected would be. If the rank of a martial institution was low, then the rank of the martial arts would naturally be low. There were very few rank 7 martial institutions in the South Rudra region that could compete with rank 6 martial institutions. However, coincidentally, the Clear Cloud Pavilion was one of those rare rank 7 martial institutions. They did not lack high-rank Earth Realm martial arts, and they even had a top-rank Earth Realm martial art. With this top-rank Earth Realm martial art, the Clear Cloud Pavilion was able to sit firmly as the number 1 rank 7 martial institution in the Black Dragon Empire. If the leader of the Blue Cloud Pavilion was not stupid, he would have taught the top rank Earth Realm martial art to Gu Qing for sure. In order for a rank 7 institution to become a rank 6 institution, besides having enough top battling power, they would also need a Sea of Souls realm warrior. With Gu Qing's talent and comprehensive ability, he would have a great chance to become a Sea of Souls realm warrior in the future. The two would meet in the first battle of the second round, which would definitely be the highlight of the battle. In everyone's eyes, no matter how powerful Bing Ling was, she would not be able to beat Gu Qing with only a couple of attacks. And Gu Qing would not just sit there and let Bing Ling beat him easily. He would definitely try his best to beat her, which would be a great treat for the audience. Who do you think will win this battle? Some people could not help but ask their friends. Isn't that obvious? Of course, it's Bing Ling. It's easy to surpass the younger generation that's ranked at the bottom, but to be able to enter the top 10, their talent and comprehension are all top-notch. Coupled with the top-notch martial arts, it's almost impossible to surpass them. Not necessarily. Gu Qing was ranked 10th in the last Hidden Dragon rank, only 3 ranks behind Bing Ling. His martial arts are almost the same as well. It would not be that easy for Bing Ling to beat him. It might be very hard. 3 years can bring the Hidden Dragon rank competition to its peak. There must be a lot of changes happening to Bing Ling and Gu Qing. No matter how we argue, it will be useless. Let's just wait and see. While everyone was talking, Bing Ling and Gu Qing went on stage. It's been 3 years, but you're still as cold as ever. Gu Qing smiled faintly, and a dark blue iron rod appeared in his hand. The iron rod was 4 feet and 8 inches long, and as thick as a child's arm. Its surface was engraved with circles of simple spiral patterns, and in the center of the spiral patterns, there was a dot. 3 spiral patterns made up 3 dots, making the iron rod look heavy and a little strange. Bing Ling said, "Bring out all of your power. Otherwise, you will lose to me just like last time." "Of course, I will use all of my power." The two exchanged a few words, then stopped talking and stared at each other. The first one to attack was Gu Qing. His body flashed, and when he was still 10 meters away from Bing Ling, the iron stick in his hand smashed down. The heavy air-breaking sound was like a mountain, giving people the feeling that it was not an iron stick, but a huge mountain, a sky-reaching stone pillar. Bing Ling stood where she was without moving at all. Only when the iron stick was smashed down did she throw out a punch. Bang! Ice shards scattered all over the sky. Gu Qing's heavy and powerful strike, which was enough to split a mountain, was actually broken by Bing Ling with her bare hands. Not only that, the dark blue iron stick was covered in a layer of frost, emitting cold air. Amazing, not only does this punch contain a large amount of Zhen Qi, it also has the power to shatter ice. Yi Chen recalled the scene just now. When Gu Qing's iron stick smashed down, Bing Ling's right fist had already gathered a large amount of ice Zhen Qi. When the two collided, the ice Zhen Qi turned into solid ice and exploded, easily shattering the mountain-like power. Su Jing said, "This should be one of the secret skills of the Ice Extreme Martial School, Ice-Breaking Fist." On the stage, Gu Qing's eyes looked serious. Zhen Qi flowed through his palm and into the iron stick. Suddenly, the 3 round dots on the iron stick lit up, and the blue halo rippled, shattering the ice. "Take my attack, Blue Cloud 9 consecutive strikes." Gu Qing yelled out as his body flashed randomly. Within the space of dozens of meters, his figure was everywhere, and it was impossible to tell which one was real and which one was fake. Immediately after, pieces of ice shards suddenly exploded around Bing Ling's body. It turned out that Gu Qing had already arrived at Bing Ling's side, and kept smashing down with his iron stick. Unfortunately, Bing Ling's defense was just as terrifying as her fist art. Before the iron stick that was covered by the blue halo could even land, it had already been weakened by layers of ice Zhen Qi. Ice shards flew everywhere, looking extremely beautiful, but also extremely shocking. 1 hit, 2 hits, 7 hits. 8 hits. It was not until the 9th hit that Gu Qing suddenly jumped up and split into 3. 3 Gu Qings held the iron stick and smashed it onto Bing Ling's protective Zhen Qi. Under Gu Qing's storm-like attacks, it was not easy for Bing Ling to block out the first 8 hits. However, the 9th hit had thrown away all the techniques, and all it had was an unparalleled power and momentum. With 1 hit, all the air had been sucked out, and all that was left was a vacuum. Crossing her arms in front of her chest, pieces of oval-shaped ice frost appeared in front of Bing Ling's body. Boom! The ice frost exploded, and Bing Ling backed out 9 steps. With every step, she would leave behind some ice shards on the stage. Ka la la. Seeing that Gu Qing had the upper hand, a lot of people did not even have the time to catch their breath before Bing Ling's counterattack came. This attack was even more violent than Gu Qing's ninth hit. With one punch, the water yuan qi in the air had been sucked over, and was thrown out along with the extremely cold fist power. His protective Zhen qi was frozen, and Gu Qing's whole body was sealed in a few meters wide ice block. He was smashed heavily onto the dark blue light wall. The ice block shattered, and Gu Qing's black hair danced in the air as he yelled, "If you can take this hit, I will admit defeat. Bring it on." Bing Ling still looked cold. Her aura kept increasing, and a bright blue qi flow exploded around Gu Qing's body. The blue qi flow spun around Gu Qing once, and then dove into the iron stick. The next second, the iron stick vibrated intensely, and the blue light started to change, eventually forming into a stone pillar shadow. It was 3 meters long and half a meter thick. Blue stone great art. Lose. After throwing out that stick attack, half of the battling platform had changed color. The powerful and heavy stone column shadow was like a real sky-piercing stone column, ferociously smashing towards Bing Ling, who was dozens of meters away. That kind of power that could crush a mountain and crack a river was unimaginable. It was hard to connect it with the handsome Gu Qing. Right then, someone yelled out, "It is the blue stone great art of the Blue Cloud Martial School." I heard that an inner master of the Blue Cloud Martial School had killed 2 warriors at the same cultivation level with one hammer attack, and was famous in the South Rudra region for its heavy power. People who trained the blue stone great art would usually choose heavy weapons, like iron sticks or hammers. Only then would they be able to bring out the full power of the blue stone great art. Gu Qing's power is indeed not to be underestimated. I wonder how Bing Ling is going to handle it. Bing Ling should have some ace attacks as well, right? Yi Chen squeezed his eyes. Bing Ling's ace attack was about to come. All of the water yuan qi on the battling stage suddenly gathered towards that elegant fist. Ice break. Bing Ling groaned as she threw out a punch with a horrifying aura. At that moment, a lot of people felt like they could hear the sound of ice breaking. Boom. The battling stage shook a little, and the air twisted. That blue-colored qi flow and freezing frost filled up everyone's vision. If it were not for the dark blue light wall, it would have spread out in all directions. Pooh! The stone column shadow had been shattered, and Gu Qing's hand, which was holding the iron stick, had cracked open. His chest felt like it had been struck by lightning as he puked out a mouthful of blood while his body was blown away. Bing Ling was not feeling any better either. Her face was slightly pale, and there was blood dripping down from the corner of her mouth. The result of the exchange of ace attacks was that Gu Qing had lost completely, while Bing Ling was slightly wounded. Bing Ling wins. The judge came back to his senses and announced the result immediately. It was not the time to be amazed by the two's power. In the competitions of the Hidden Dragon rank, even the slightest injury could affect the rest of the battles. Even the leaders of the Ice Extreme Martial School and the Blue Cloud Martial School looked very anxious. Bing Ling had just gotten off the stage when she was taken away by the leader of the Ice Extreme Martial School. Without any surprises, she would be using her Seas of Soul's realm cultivation to heal Bing Ling, so that she would be able to recover to her peak condition when she encountered a powerful opponent. That way, she would be able to avoid further injuries and possibly losing the competition. The people from the Blue Cloud Martial School were not slow either. They brought Gu Qing, who looked very tired, into the training room nearby. Although the Blue Cloud Martial School did not have any Seas of Soul's realm warriors, Gu Qing's injury was not that serious. With the help of a couple of astral-reaching realm warriors, plus the top healing medicine, it would not be a big problem for him to recover within a short period of time. Compared to that, the ranking of the Hidden Dragon rank was what they cared about. The departure of the two did not cool down the atmosphere. Instead, it got even more heated. I did not expect Gu Qing to be able to fight with Bing Ling like that. It would be hard for those young warriors to surpass him. Yeah. Bing Ling could be counted as one of the top young warriors. There were not many people who could injure her. Although it was just a small injury, if there were no competitions, she would not need to rest at all. She would be able to recover completely after a couple of days of rest. In the Group 5, the top 4 are almost out. They are Bing Ling, Gu Qing, Tang Xiaoshan and Yi Chen. I wonder if the 4 of them will run into each other. If they do, it would be another intense battle. Everyone was full of anticipation for the upcoming battles. Of course, it was not just the Group 5, the other groups' battles would be exciting as well. After all, there were only 24 people in each group, and in 10 rounds of battles, they would run into 10 people. There would be scenes where the top 2 would run into each other. When Bing Ling and Gu Qin were battling, Lynch was also battling. Because the 2 of them were not as eye-catching as the 2 on the other side, not many people were paying attention to them. Right now, the battle had ended, and Lynch had won. Time passed slowly, and 5 battles had already ended in the Group 5. The 6th battle was Yi Chen's, and his opponent was the 3rd disciple of the Sky Demon Martial School, Wu Liangyu. Everyone who had not calmed down yet suddenly became excited. On the surface, Wu Liangyu was indeed not as powerful as Yi Chen, but he would not be weaker than Gao Feng, and might even be more powerful. What they were looking forward to was how would Yi Chen beat Wu Liangyu. Chapter 255. A huge pair of black wings appeared on his back as Wu Liangyu floated above the battling platform, looking down at Yi Chen. Ha! As long as I can keep the distance, then there is nothing to be afraid of. Being considered weaker than Yi Chen and many of the people before him was a huge blow to Wu Liangyu. He did not know how the others thought about him, but in his opinion, the reason why Yi Chen could beat Yi Chen with one sword attack was because of the close distance and the sudden attack. Plus, Yi Chen had just finished preparing his most powerful ace attack, so he was a bit relaxed. That was why Yi Chen was able to take advantage of him. Right now, he was in the air, maintaining 100 meters distance from his opponent. As long as Yi Chen made any move, with the speed increasing effect of the Black Crow Great Art, Wu Liangyu would have enough time to react, and would not let Yi Chen get close to him easily. On the first row of the audience seating, the Black Crow man nodded satisfyingly. What Wu Liangyu did was the best way to deal with Yi Chen. Only with enough distance would he be able to maximize the advantage of the Black Crow Great Art. As for Wu Liangyu trying to increase the distance, Yi Chen did not care too much about it. The gap between them was not just a little bit, so it did not matter if there was a distance or not. Death Tornado. Wu Liangyu attacked. As the 3rd disciple of the Sky Demon Martial School, ranked 25 in the last Hidden Dragon rank, his power was still very powerful. Both of his wings flapped intensely, and the pitch-black light shone brightly. Countless arc-shaped cutting waves accumulated in the air, forming into a tornado-like black light wave, attacking towards Yi Chen. It covered the whole sky, making it impossible for Yi Chen to dodge. Swoosh! A weird sound of cloth tearing was heard. A scratch appeared in the sky full of black light, expanding quickly. Yi Chen walked out from it with his sword in his hand, completely unharmed. Wu Liangyu's pupils shrank. He subconsciously flapped his wings, backing out quickly. Shoo! A beam of sword chi brushed past his protective Zhen Qi layer and landed heavily on the dark blue light wall, bringing up circles of patterns. I will see how you are going to break it this time. Death Storm. The wings on his back combined with the 2 scimitars in his hands, the Death Tornado had been upgraded into an even more horrifying Death Tornado. Countless arc-shaped chopping waves interweaved together, attacking towards Yi Chen with a destructive aura. Wu Liangyu believed that under this attack, as long as Yi Chen showed even the slightest flaw, he would be badly wounded. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Yi Chen took 3 steps forward, then lifted up his Star Scar sword and attacked back. Whoosh! There were light blue electric sparks flashing in the midair, and the black tornado was split in half like a curtain being pulled open. Wu Liangyu, who was behind the curtain, did not even have the time to react before his protective Zhen-Qi layer was sliced open. He flipped 4 times in the air before sliding down from the dark blue light wall. This sword attack contains both the poetic perspectives of cloud and thunder. How is this possible? An inner master of the Sky Demon Martial School said with surprise. Before, although Yi Chen had used his sky-shattering cloud's poetic perspective a couple of times, he was still not eye-catching at that time. Plus, he was still holding back his poetic perspective. Therefore, not many people had noticed it. But now that his opponent was Wu Liangyu, it had naturally attracted everyone's attention. Another inner master sighed, although poetic perspectives are not as hard to understand as sword intent, it is still a test of one's comprehensive ability and talent. Compared to him, Liangyu is still way too weak. The Crow Man forced a smile. He could not help but look at Yi Chen a couple more times. He had seen Yi Chen 3 times, and his power had been completely different each time. To be honest, he had never seen such a horrifying speed of improvement from any young man before. Even Xikong Sheng was not as fast as him. What a little monster. The Crow Man's love for talent was aroused. Yi Chen's win was not out of the judge's expectation, so he announced the result immediately. They all more or less had the same thought. They wanted to see how long Yi Chen's winning streak would last, and whether it would stop at the second stage of the competition. It was definitely a crazy idea. 12 wins in a row. Why do I feel like watching Yi Chen's battles is so exciting? It seems to give people a sense of anticipation, and I can't wait for him to keep winning. Me too. I was just wondering. Logically speaking, the power he has shown so far has not reached the top 10 yet. Maybe it is because he knows everything about the others, but only he is a stranger. He belongs to the real nameless warriors. In the martial world, a nameless warrior beating a powerful warrior who had been famous for a long time would be the most sensational and widely spread news. Someone pointed out the key point. The others heard him and were all enlightened. Indeed, among the young generation, Yi Chen was indeed a nameless warrior, and he had been hiding his power all this time. He was not like Toa Baku, who had shown his power that was enough to compete with the top young warriors from the very beginning. It had reduced the expectation that the crowd had for him, since he only had a few opponents, and the battles before were obviously just child's play. Wah! Wu Liangyu, who had just crawled up from the ground, puked out a mouthful of blood. His chest felt a lot better, but his mind was not. He remembered that when he met Yi Chen in the Gold Tripod City, his power was almost the same as his. The reason why he was able to escape from the Wind Wolf's attack was not because of the difference in power, but because of the difference in perception, which allowed him to avoid the Wind Wolf's sound wave attack in advance. It had only been a couple of months, and Yi Chen had not only reached the late clasping Yuan realm, but his attacking power had also increased drastically. It was like 1,000 miles in a day, leaving Yi Chen, who had only made some progress, far behind him. Right now, Yi Chen was thinking, how did Yi Chen train? Is the gap between us really that big? His 3 years of hard work could not even compare to Yi Chen's 1 year, or even a couple of months. All of a sudden, Wu Liangyu looked depressed. Before, he was so arrogant because he was confident that he had made more progress than the others. But now, it seemed like it was not the case at all. The people in front of him had made more progress than him, and the people behind him had also caught up with him, which put him in an awkward situation. Could it be that he, Wu Liangyu, could not be one of the top martial geniuses? Countless thoughts flashed through his mind, and all of Wu Liangyu's ambition had disappeared. He felt that he was a bit ridiculous before, like a clown. Yi Chen did not know what Wu Liangyu was thinking, and he did not care. But if it happened to him, he would not be as negative as Wu Liangyu. A real powerful warrior would first have to have a strong will and a strong heart. Even if the sky fell and the ground cracked, even if there were thousands of obstacles, they would face it with a smile. Only with a strong heart would one have the essence of a powerful warrior. The sixth battle had finished, and the seventh battle had begun. The two contestants were Tang Xiaoshan and a young warrior from the last hidden dragon rank. It seemed like he was fighting against Yi Chen. Tang Xiaoshan only threw out one blade attack and beat the powerful opponent, winning the 12th battle. A lot of people were talking about Tang Xiaoshan and Yi Chen. Among the top 10 new stars, Tang Xiaoshan was ranked 4th, while Yi Chen was ranked 5th. Right now, Yi Chen had overshadowed Tang Xiaoshan, which made him feel a huge pressure. He wanted to use his sword art to prove that he was more powerful than Yi Chen, and that he deserved to be ranked 4th. In the following 3rd and 4th battles, Tang Xiaoshan's performance had proved this fact. First, he used the blade scabbard to beat the 3rd opponent, then he used the normal blade draw art to beat the 4th opponent, which made him the most famous one. Yi Chen did not have that kind of interest. Even if he did, he would not use Tang Xiaoshan as a competition target. He only needed to win one battle after another. Even so, Yi Chen's 14 wins in a row were still so eye-catching. His not competing was actually more convincing than Tang Xiaoshan's competition. The battles here were getting more and more intense, and the other groups were not any weaker. In the first group, Toabaku had just beaten the young warrior who was ranked 9th in the last hidden dragon rank. What was more interesting was that he had taken an attack from his opponent before fighting back. His horrifying defense had made a lot of people frown. No matter what, that young warrior who was ranked 9th in the last hidden dragon rank was not some random warrior. Who would dare to take an attack from him? In the second group, Wei Renjie, who had beaten Lynch, had lost a battle. His opponent was none other than one of the top young warriors, the head disciple of the Heartless Martial School, Li Daoxian. Wei Renjie's entry-level blade intent was without a doubt one of the top 3 warriors among the young generation. Unfortunately, his opponent was Li Daoxian, whose sword intent had reached 60%. Once his sword intent was released, even the air had frozen. He had blown away Wei Renjie's great blade with one sword attack. In the third group, Murong Qingcheng and the head disciple of the alchemist martial school, Meng Chao, faced each other. Meng Chao's power was at the same level as Wu Liangyu's. His red burning godly palm was even hotter, able to melt gold and iron. However, facing Murong Qingcheng's sky demon power field, his red burning godly palm was completely useless. He had only thrown out 3 attacks before he was caught by Murong Qingcheng's sky demon power field, falling on the ground and making him dizzy. In the fourth group, the head disciple of the sky demon martial school, Demon Eyes Mo Yen, had performed the power of his sky demon art. Every movement was almost perfect. In his eyes, his opponent was full of flaws. There were openings everywhere, and he could attack from anywhere. In the sixth group, the Fire Spirit Prince, Yan Qihua, had shown the people what it meant to be aggressive and unstoppable. The long blade in his hand was like a dancing fire dragon. With one blade attack, the young warrior who had set up layers of defense had been blown away while puking out blood. It was a clean cut. Right then, everyone was very clear that the following battles could happen at any moment. The fourth battle of the fifth round, Yi Chen against Tang Xiaoshan. As the judge's voice was heard, the atmosphere in the audience seating became heated. Yi Chen was not surprised at all. Right now, the contestants were divided into 6 groups, and each group had 24 people. Excluding himself, there would be 23 people in total. 23 people would go through 10 rounds of battles, and each of them would have 10 opponents. Therefore, the chance for Yi Chen to fight against Tang Xiaoshan was around 40%. So, it was expected that he would fight against Tang Xiaoshan. The 4th and 5th of the top 10 new stars are finally going to fight against each other. I wonder who will be more powerful. You will know when you see it. Before, they had been winning all the time. After this battle, one of them will lose his winning record. Tang Xiaoshan sneered. His body flashed and went through the dark blue light wall directly, appearing on the battling platform. He twisted his wrist, and a long blade appeared in his hand. Seeing Yi Chen get on the battling platform, Tang Xiaoshan looked down, staring at the blade and said, "Let me remind you, my blade intent has reached 50%. If you do not want to get hurt, you can choose to give up." What? Tang Xiaoshan's blade intent has reached 50%. It seems like his ranking in the top 10 new stars will increase by 1 or 2. If it is not the second, then it will be the third. Qian Yun and Gu Yuyun might not be able to beat him, and they might even be beaten instead. He has hidden his power too well. 50% blade intent. Among the young generation of blade users, he is only second to the Fire Spirit Prince, Yan Qihua. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.